Good evening, everybody, and this is Free to Heal, and I'm Noreen McClendon. I am your host, facilitator, and moderator, and Free to Heal is a group that comes together every week. We are a group of formerly incarcerated, loved ones, children, stakeholders involved with or affected by the criminal justice system. And tonight's topic, the first of a few I'm sure it will be, on reunification. Primarily, we talked about reunification of families with their children, formerly incarcerated with their children, but it touched on other relationships. And one of the first things I want you to realize about reunification is, by definition, it is the coming together of something that was formerly together and was separated. So, it is the bringing together of something that has been separated that needs to be unified again. So that gives an indication that there was some unity or some unification to begin with. And so whenever you think about reunification, I want you to think about, were we unified before the incarceration? How was the relationship during the incarceration? And there are a few things that we came out of tonight's discussion with that I think are really important. I want you to pay attention to. One is the complexity of reunification in general. There are so many factors that come together in one place in reunification. For example, if it's parent and child, how old was the child when the parent was incarcerated? What were the things that the child went through as the result of the parent physically not being there? Depending on how traumatic that child's life has been, because the parent wasn't there, may determine how their approach to reunification develops. Then there are the notion of the traumas that they went to, that they blame the parent for not being there to protect them, and they're hurt, rightfully so. But then there's the person who was incarcerated has changed substantially, and so have the other people, the family members, the children, the friends. There's also the process of reunifying with friends, and that makes a difference. So there are lots of complex issues that relate to the notion of bringing back together those things that were there prior to a person's incarceration. Some people didn't have the benefit of having great relationships prior to incarceration. One thing that was extremely interesting and powerful to me was a gentleman discussing how his parents, before he was incarcerated, his parents had substance abuse issues and for most of his childhood, and then prior to him getting incarcerated, decided to get clean, and that ultimately that was where his resentment started, was when they got clean. But now he has an opportunity, thankfully, to build a relationship with them now that they're both they're all out of incarceration, and they get to have a new life and build a new foundation for their relationship, which was great. But it was powerful to me because in my work with former emancipated foster youth, one of the things I know for sure is that more often than not, they want to bring their parents with them into homes, no matter how abusive, neglectful the parent was. The children still want to love and care for their own parents. And so in this gentleman's case, his parents had substance abuse issues, but he loved them, and they were the parents that he knew. They were the parents that he loved. And when they became somebody different, initially he rejected it. So just pay attention to what you present to your children, because they love what they learn and what they know. And that's a really powerful thing. So whether it's healthy or not, what you put in their suitcase is what they're going to have for their lives and what they will gravitate to. And again, these are the ravages of incarceration that we're constantly trying to overcome and become better people. And this is why we get together every week. But I really hope that you enjoy listening to those things that we dealt with reunification, because these are issues that anybody's going to face, even if a person's not incarcerated. When families break up, there's this co-parenting, trying to get along, because we're no longer what we were, but we need to be something new now. And not everybody's interested in being the something new. So it's really important. Reunification, someone brought up a good point tonight about how trying to reunify just with friends is different. There's also a valid point there, because the person that went into incarceration is not the person you're dealing with now. And the person who's been on the outside, who was a friend, they've had a life for however long that friend was incarcerated. And they've changed. There are things that have changed. One of the gentlemen tonight mentioned that he's taking a class on PTSD because there's this trauma that happens to him even now, coming home and being in society every day. So reunification is a complicated issue, whether the children were young. Also, what do caretakers do? What do parents, the custodial parent, if they're there, how do they try to have the children interact with the parent that is incarcerated? Is that communication, that relationship encouraged? There are some caregivers who try to block out the parent and act as if they don't exist, which is not healthy in my estimation. But some people make that choice because that's what they think is best for the children involved. I do know, as a matter of spirit law, that children want to know their biological source. So I would always encourage people to err on the side of maintaining relationships with those parents while they're incarcerated, because children need to have their parent, not just a parent, but their parent. That's what they're imbued to want. Now, that's not always possible, but it is what they want, and it would always be best if possible. So tonight was a great discussion. I hope that you enjoy and get as much out of it as I did and as we all did. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week on Free to Heal. And again, I'm Noreen McClendon. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, obviously on YouTube. And if you have comments, questions, topics you want us to discuss, please, by all means, let us know. And I hope you have a good week. Be free and be healed. Bye-bye. And so this is Free to Heal. And we meet every week to try to heal from the ravages of incarceration. But tonight, based on something we talked about, touched on last week, we talked about reunification. We talked about reunifying with family and children. And through the week, I've thought about it. And one of the things that stuck out to me about the concept of reunification is that it is bringing together two things that were once together, two things that were unified initially. And the question I think that everybody should ask, those coming home from incarceration, as well as the people who are home on this side, were you unified before the incarceration? Was it really a union to begin with? And then what was the nature of that union? So for example, there's a difference between a child who was very small when their parent went to incarceration versus a child that might have been 10, 11, or 12 years old that that when the parent went into incarceration. There's a different level of relationship. There's a different level of understanding of being able to miss that person. There are all these different things that when you ask yourself, what was the relationship prior to incarceration? And I think it's important to decide and to figure out and go back and to the beginning and look at it realistically. Yes, ma'am, you wanted to say something? Wait, unmute. There you go.
Okay, so I was in a marriage. My marriage, I just got married in 90. He went to jail in 96. I had 3 children, which we had a full relationship with the children and everything. But when he came back from prison, which my baby had just turned 5 when he went to prison, when he came home, my son had turned 12. He was in middle school. My son was my oldest kids were out of school. Well, no, one of my oldest kids was out. The other one was still in. She made it home to see her graduation. For me, it was difficult because it was a full family that got torn apart. And I had to deal with the kids on my own, which was, a little bit difficult because you used to being in a home with a family, but then you had family members that helped me out a lot with my children. But it was difficult because I would have to take the kids up to the prison. And I didn't like that part, but I still tried to keep the relationship with them together.
And that's an interesting point because there are a lot of people who don't try to maintain those relationships when the other parent is incarcerated, men or women. I know one lady, her at CIW, when I taught in CIW, and her caregiver was trying to convince her children to start calling the caregiver mother and call her by her name. So that's also another element too, that I need to try to seek out people who have been caregivers for children while their parents were incarcerated to get their perspective as well. And I think a lot of it has to do with the age of the children. But again, remember, reunification is not just, and I think it was Gilbert that talked about his family and trying to reunify with them, not in this instance, but before, about lifestyle being challenging for you because there's certain things that you can't do. He can't be involved in certain things. And then there were family members that were involved in other things, but still loving them and wanting to be around them, but knowing that it may not be possible. So when you're talking about, you may have small children or you may have adult family members, and that reunification process is different for all of them. So the notion that trying to deal with the family, knowing that you've changed, your circumstances have changed, and everybody else's circumstances have changed, all of those things have to be taken into consideration. Because can I even at this point, now that I'm on the other side of the wall, still be involved? James, you had another situation is similar to where your family, you had a lot of folks involved in things that you could no longer be involved in because you came home and now you're trying to do something different.
Yeah. When I came home, a lot of my family was still into the street life. A lot of them were still carrying pistols. A lot of them were still gang banging, dope slanging. So those parts of my family I couldn't deal with because of the violation purpose in my case itself. So with that, I had to make a decision. My freedom versus hanging out with them.
Right.
So after a while, they started understanding when they didn't see me that the reason why they wasn't seeing me is because I chose freedom over friendship. I love you, but I have to choose my freedom. This is my time to be selfish. So when you think about people you deal with, because now I don't ride with nobody in my car because I don't know if they got a knife wider than my hand or a gun in their pocket. So, and all my tools are in the toolbox with a lock on it. Because I don't want nobody to mistakenly say that I was out to do some harm to somebody. So everything that you do, you have to think of self first. Self-preservation is first. Second is family, immediate family, those that would walk that line with you. Your mama, your daddy, your sisters, your kids, your nieces, they walk that line with you. And then after that comes everybody else. So when you come home, lean more towards your brothers for a minute in the house, because if they're doing right, they're gonna pull you right.
And when you say that, you mean you're speaking to those guys that's on here that have been at the Francisco homes to lean on the other brothers in the house for
Yes.
that support, because they're looking the same way. They have the same kind of mindset and things that you do. But when I was just thinking about, in terms of reunification, the fact that you're bringing back together something that was once unified that's separated.
Yeah.
Think about that as a concept by itself. It was once unified, it's separated, and now you're trying to bring it back together.
So mine is when I went to prison, my son had just turned 4, and I came home when he was 21. So he loved me when I left, and then over the years, because I only saw him like maybe 3 times a year, and then I used to get shipped, and when I get shipped, it'd be 2 years before I saw him, 2 years before I saw him, and when I started asking him, "Are you going to live with me?" He said, "I don't know what I'm going to be doing because I'm going to be grown when you get home." And it's a big difference because I don't know him. He doesn't know me, but we go out every now and then and have dinner together, but we're on our phones. So it's a big thing. It's a big thing. I've given up, and not given up, but I'm not, it's just, he's a different person. He's not the little boy I left, and that was the issue I had with him. When I came home, the first thing I did, because they came to pick me up from the airport when I was released, the first thing I did when I was with him alone is I tried to clean his ears, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I used to do this all the time." So for me, when I came home, he was still 4. But he was a grown man with mustache and beard and stuff, and I didn't see it for a long time. So thank you.
And it's also true for a lot of people that when people go into incarceration, for them a lot of things stop, and for the people incarcerated, a lot of times the emotional development and all that stuff gets stunted right there, where whatever age you went into the penitentiary, because there's no real opportunity to have healthy emotional relationships in the penitentiary necessarily. Like, you'd have to work really hard to find that. And especially if you're talking about intimate relationships, that's really would be a challenge. But family members grow, move, the world keeps moving, the world keeps changing, and people begin to evolve. So where Cheryl had a 4-year-old, he's now a grown man. And so he's grown a whole lifetime without his mother. And so trying to reunify in her mind to the 4-year-old who's now 21 years old. Another thing that came up that Terrell talked to us about a little while ago too was the fact that his children had suffered some things. They had suffered some things when he was away. And there's they've been through things that they attribute to being the reason is because you were not there to protect them, or they needed you and you weren't there. So then they can build resentment in those ways. But understanding, and that isn't just related to children. So, for example, as a loved one, the traumas and things that I go through while my guy was away, and missing him and wanting to be there. And then the fears when there's lockdowns and you can't talk to anybody and all those things, they leave scars. So there builds up a fear and an anxiety that you are actually going to not be here. So it causes, we've talked about this before, it causes often a hypervigilance about where are you, who you with, what you doing. We also know that you don't know everything. So how can we help you? We become concerned about all of those things because of your absence in our lives. And so for family members, even if they were grown when you went away, things change. We were talking about a relationship that one of the guys on here had. He's on tonight, that he had with somebody else, and still was speaking about the young person that he talked to 30 years ago, right? And thinking that this was the sweet person that was 30 years ago, and came home, recognized, wait a minute, they got an alcohol problem, they got a whole lot of different things, right? So there are things that happen in life and people change over that period of time that you may not know about, because there's a phenomenon that people that you love when you're incarcerated, when we get to talk to you or see you, we do not tell you all of the bullshit that we go through. We do not spend our time talking about that. We're trying to have a good visit. We're trying to keep it light. We're working really hard not to put you under pressure and all of those things. And so we don't talk about the day-to-day, mundane. We try not to talk about the stressful things that are going on. We want to put on a good face. As my man's woman, I wanted to look good. I wanted to smell good when he saw me. I wanted to be happy, upbeat when he saw me. I didn't want to tell him that the guard was just rude to me outside. I didn't want to talk about that. I wanted to talk about how you doing, baby, and I wanted to be uplifting for him. But guess what that means? When it's time for y'all to come home, all of those things are still waiting. They're still there. They're still as real as they were when it happened. And those are the things. So we have to be mindful that whether it is children or whether it's adults, that there's a process to reunifying. There's a process, because everybody's not the same. I don't care how long you've known them. Things have happened to them, just like things happen to you in prison that you don't talk about. There are things that happen to them that they have not talked to you about. So you have to understand that these are the things that will hinder, potentially, not always, but they can potentially hinder reunification. They can make reunification difficult because there's so much subtext, so many things going on underneath of the fact that here we are now, we're trying to deal with each other, but all of these things that happened that are the roots and underneath the ground, underneath the dirt, and everybody know that the fruit that you see on the top of the tree is only as good as what's going on in the roots down below, right? So whatever you had going on down there, what you see in the open and what you see on top of the ground still has that in there, whether or not it's healthy or not. Because a tree could stand up and look like it's alive and healthy or whatever until you start touching it, and then then you find that actually the tree is dead. So there are things that you all went through in your incarceration, and things that your loved ones went through that will make your reunification difficult. So how many people that are on here now, just raise your hand where you are, actually have children that you had while you were incarcerated? So none of the gentlemen have children. Di's got, so you, okay. So it looks like just the ladies that were incarcerated are the only ones that had kids during incarceration. And so LaTanya, can you talk to us a little bit about the challenges that you've had with reunification since you've been home?
Building the bond back, getting to know my children. My children is just getting to a place where they feel like I'm not leaving.
And how old were they when you went away?
Whoa. So I was only in Linwood. I did 6 months in the county jail, but I have substance abuse. So I left and my kids went to a foster home, and I was dealing with my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a daughter that's 20, a son 16, and another son that's 11. And they were in foster home. And then when I did get them back, it's still and still today, like if I'm gone for too long, they'll call and say, "Mom, where you at?" But it's still like it's still a journey for us. Even though they've been home for 2.5 years, it's still a journey. They still not secure. They feel like is she going to leave again? Like, so it's that
Yes.
trust factor,
Yes.
and the toughest one is my daughter. Our relationship is very rocky, and I get it. She got resentment. She's the oldest. She's seen a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And probably felt a lot more responsibility.
She did.
Mm-hmm. For the other two.
She
were
said
they,
when she
were
was
they separated, or were they able to be together?
they were together, but probably like a year before I'm getting them back, the two oldest was together and they separate the youngest. And she told me the last time she was here, because she's in college now, but she said, you don't know how much responsibility I had. So she said, it's like now I feel free.
Mm-hmm.
Because she had to look over her brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just to hear the things that people said about me, it was traumatizing. So she had to deal with that. And yeah.
Now that's interesting too, is how as with loved ones, just that simple thing of having to listen to what people say about your loved one that's incarcerated, because that's tough. Go ahead, James.
Let me tell you something. I did 26 and a half years in prison for murder for hire. My youngest was my son was 2 months old when I went to jail. My daughter was 2 years old. Them was my babies. When my kids got old enough to communicate, I never held nothing back. I asked them, "What's your question?" They asked me, "What was I in prison for?" So I had to tell them. Then when I came home, they asked me again. I had to explain to them what I went to prison for. My oldest daughter asked me, she said, "Did you not love me enough to stay out?" I said, "No, I loved you enough that my addiction to money overruled my love for myself first. Then it was the love for you guys, because I thought I was doing it for y'all, but I was really doing it for my own addiction."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when they understood that, it kind of calmed down the questions. Mm-hmm. But anytime that a question arises, I'm open book. So I always talk to my kids. I don't force them to be with me. I got a son that he still resents me, so I let him do his thing, and he'll call and say hi, Pop, and I talk to him. But it's not my purpose to make them, they grown, they're adults. It's not my purpose to make them love me the way I think that I deserve to be loved as a father, because I ain't been a dad for 26 and a half years.
Yeah.
I've been a father.
Yeah.
I've been the one that they call and say, "Dad, do you have this disease? Daddy, do you have this in your family? Daddy, is your blood type this? Daddy,"
Right.
But outside of that, I was just a father. I wasn't a dad. Mm-hmm. How can I say I was a dad from prison? I wasn't at the birthday parties, the Christmas, the 4th of July, the family reunions, any of them things. So when it comes to the naturalization of reunifying yourself with your family, always take into consideration that, one, your woman had to be a man and live by herself and keep a family. Two, your children had to deal with the stigma of you being in prison all them years, because they would ask my daughters all the time, where's your dad at?
Mm.
You don't look like him, because the mother got a new boyfriend, and they tell Kasani, hey, you don't look like him, where your dad at? And she had to tell him, look, my dad's in prison.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she never lied to him. I said, well, how did that make you feel? She said it was hurtful, but it was truthful.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you taught me never to lie.
Mm-hmm.
So I live with our truth.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you're home, my friends see you and they talk to you and they see what type of man you are. And they always tell you, be glad that you have a father, a dad that cares about you when he came out of prison, because most people come out of prison don't know how to communicate. The thing is, take your time and understand all the groups that we went through to learn how to communicate, not just with society, but with our own families. Because they don't know how to talk to you.
Mm-mm.
They don't even know you.
And that's the thing, is to recognize that family members, everybody has to get to know everybody again. It's like starting a new relationship almost, because for one thing, as we talk often, is that you're going to have to figure out now who you are on this side, right? Who are you now that you're out of prison? Because you're not the person that went into prison if for no other reason than just the passage of time and maturing and being older. You're not, if you went in as a 17-year-old and come out 29, 30 years later, you're not the same person. Number two, particularly for people who have done a long period of time, they're not interested in going back. Number three, being in prison, the person that that lived in prison cannot be the person on the street, because the rules don't apply. It's not the same. What works in prison and what the rules and regulations are, the hierarchy, the politics, all that's prison life. As a person who dealt with a loved one and all of those things, one of my least favorite statements is this: well, in there we don't care about what's going on in there. We're not trying to live like you in prison. We're trying to live now on the outside. Okay, we're not trying to live what you live in, a lifestyle you lived while you were in the penitentiary. So with those things, there's a challenge in trying to just communicate. And again, going back to the fact that there are a lot of things that you don't want to discuss about what happened when you were in prison. And there are a lot of things we didn't discuss with you while you were in prison. So all of those things stand somewhere in the relationship. They're in there. And understanding that some of the conversation, particularly who have people who are frustrated with them or angry, because they've been through so much while you've been away, letting them just voice it and get it out, and not trying to defend it, can be very helpful. But it's important to realize again that reunification is difficult because you got people who haven't known each other, and in one person's mind, for example, if it's children, or even if it's someone you wanted to date, you see them as the person they were in your mind when you went into prison. But they've had a whole lifetime, if you were gone 20 plus years, that changed who they are. And it certainly added stuff to the mix, right? So it added things that you didn't know were there. And now trying to adjust and get accustomed to all of those new things is another layer between you and easy reunification. So, and that fear that LaTanya talked about that her kids have, that's just now starting to ease, about, can I count on you to be here? It matters. it matters, because that's important. We want to know, can I count on you to stay here with me? We already know, we've discussed it a million times. None of you guys woke up in the morning and said, I'm getting ready to go out here now and I'm be gone for the next 29 years.
Yeah.
Nobody ever did that. Nobody woke up that morning and told their kids, I'm getting ready to go away for 29 years. Nobody did that. 30 years, 26 years. But it's what happened. You wanted to say something, Ms. Di? Wait,
If
what?
you live it, it's
Okay.
not that you woke up and said it, but if you're living in that lifestyle, you knew eventually one day that day was gonna come.
Well, you should, but you know, like I know, most people never think they're gonna get caught.
Yeah, that day gonna come. One day it's gonna come.
That for most people, that day don't come. They don't think about that.
That day gonna come.
I didn't think I'd get that much time. That's all.
Really?
I knew I was gone, but I didn't think I'd get that much time.
But wait. So you thought you knew that?
I knew I was gone. I figured I'd get 10 years. 10 years, I would have been back when the boy was a teenager.
Oh.
But I got more than 10 years.
Okay.
So.
Okay. But again, and none of that was in with the notion that you were going to ruin your child's life, or you were going to, create this separation. You loved your child.
You love them, but you in like with James, I had addiction to money too. So I'm making a lot of money. They can live a good life.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell people when I got there and I used to talk to the women, I would tell them, because I would say the things that I had,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say I would give back everything I had to be able to walk into the next room with my children,
Mm-hmm.
because it was just material stuff. But the thing is to be able not to give them all that stuff, but to be able, when you crying, there your mother is, and your mother can hug you and comfort you, but your mama ain't there.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes through this life without me, and he needed me because I was his entire world, and then his world left.
Yeah.
So.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If you know you're not getting up going to work every day, you getting up hitting licks, eventually one time you're gonna get caught.
You should. But like I said, they don't think they're gonna get caught.
But like like Cheryl said, you never think you're gonna get all that time. Like when I was first sentenced to 425 to life sentence, life without plus 1 day. That was my sentence when I first got sentenced.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody actually think that they're gonna get all this time. I didn't think I was gonna get all this time. I knew eventually I was gonna get caught because I woke up 2 o'clock in the morning, there's DEA, FBI, and ATF in my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I was getting closer and closer to getting caught. Now is how fast can I get as much money as I can before they actually catch me? Because I need the best attorney I could get. That was in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the code that you live by when you're out there in the streets like that, because you don't know how much time you're gonna get, but you do live your life as how much money you can put up fast as you can, because you know one day it's gonna happen.
And now, brothers and sisters, let's think about it. How many of y'all actually sat down and told your significant other that you was going to jail, or that you had in the back of your mind that you was going to jail? None of us told them that, because guess what? We didn't want to scare them out. We were trying to keep them along for the ride. How am I going to keep a woman in my corner for 425 to life sentences, bow-legged, and a life without plus 1 day, bow-legged? Ain't no woman going to be around for that.
Well, I knew eventually it was going to happen, because I knew the lifestyle we both was living. But he was living it by himself, but I was involved too. You know what I'm saying? So that's the ride I decided to take.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But see, Ms. Di, I think you were unique in that area. I really do, because a lot of women are not thinking forward like that. They're living in the moment.
But I'm saying, you know what he's doing to get the money. You going to spend it. You know what I'm saying? You use it to pay your bills.
Diane,
you know what I'm saying?
Look. How many of them actually thinks that you gonna get caught, even when they with a baller cap, because they think that he was protecting himself and he never gonna get caught. His money gonna be forever. and we're gonna ride off into the sunset. That's what a
It's
lot
just
of
not
women
so,
think.
and a lot of women don't even think about it until they start having kids. But
Yeah,
but again, because so many people on here don't have children, again, let's make sure they understand just the reunification period is a process, and that you got to take into account what you've been through, what growth you've had, what they've been through, what changes and growth they've been through, and recognize that it's difficult, even in good circumstances, when you've been away from somebody for years and years. But when you've been through a situation and you've been through something like they have been through, having been incarcerated, it's much harder, because you first got to, the person coming home has to get to know who they are. They have their own identity thing going on, and then trying to be able to explain that when they're coming out of a situation where communication wasn't the thing, being emotionally expressive and all that wasn't the place to do that. So it's just very difficult and challenging. And I know it's getting late, so I just want to go around and give folks an opportunity to chime in on their thoughts. Anything that you think stuck out to you, anything that may have you may want to talk about a little bit further, whatever. I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Steffens.
Yes, the topic tonight is a very complex topic. I thought about the 30 years prior. I was so disconnected to self, I didn't even know myself, due to the fact, without feelings, without understanding, without a love content. And I knew that jail was all fit for me. The first time I ever went to jail, I was 8 years old. And I said to myself, this is all this is? So I wasn't afraid. And at that time, I accidentally burned a house to the ground in foster care. And when the authorities got a hold to me, they labeled me as an arsonist. And I didn't know what that was until years and years later. And I found out that was a person that set fire to things. Well, when I got older, I kept going to jail. I kept doing things. I kept doing things, and I kept doing things until I got a life sentence. I was so disconnected to self, I didn't care about what happened to me.
And I need to stop you right there and say this, Mr. Steffens. Mr. Steffens, I need to say this because it's really important. The definition of reunification is bringing something back together that was unified once, right? So for anybody on here, if you think about if you didn't know who you weren't even a unit unto yourself. When you say, I didn't know who I was disconnected from me, that makes reunification even harder, to reunify with society and reintegrate back into something that you never felt a connection with in the beginning. And that's a really valid point, because whether it's children, family, if you don't have any of those things, do you know who you are, and do you know how you're going to move forward? And that is a very important point. So thank you for sharing that. The notion that you were disconnected from who you were. Mr. Steffens, so go ahead. So I just wanted to, iterate that.
I understand now that today I look at the things that I do. I watch what I do, and I watch what I say. 30 years ago, I entertained life in a different way than in the way I do it now. So I'm learning things about myself that is unique, that is different, that is important. And I'm on a thread that, maybe I'll become the person that I want to be and that I can be. And I want to be a good, decent human being.
And I have no doubt that you are already.
Yes, you are.
I have no doubt in my mind that you are. I've always told you amaze me when I consider, because you always have very profound things to say, and I always get such a good energy from you. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you already are what you want to be, and you certainly have been that in this group. But I'm just grateful that we can have these conversations and give you something to chew on and something to think about. So thank you. I always enjoy your comments. Mr. Patrick,
Thank you.
can you chime in for us? What's your thoughts on tonight, Mr. Patrick? Go ahead, Patrick. Oh, you muted yourself. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, we're talking about children and family members. And with me, it was family members. But the biggest thing for me was friends and associates. In my limited world of a social life, I went to college before. I worked for Grace Company. I worked for Coco's. I worked for Rubens. I did most of my professional life in Orange County. And those people just wanted to know, where the hell you been? And some of them you trusted enough to say, well, I was in prison. Or now, because CDC has been retitled rehabilitation, you allow the people to say, well, I was in rehab. Unfortunately, you're stretching the truth, but that is the truth. You were in rehab to reacquaint yourself with how to be a viable member of society. You're not a threat to society. Society took you out of society, the courts, because you were a threat to society. You killed somebody, you stole, you committed violence, and now you're back, and you have to be very careful because all of a sudden you need some support, and some people, they really don't want to know. They want to be your friends, they want to be around you, but they don't want the details. Other people, they do want the details, like children and your mom and dad, if you're lucky enough to have that, they want all the details. Like the woman that's saying, well, her kids were mad at her. Hell yes, they're going to be mad at you. You left. Well, your mom and dad and cousins and immediate relatives, they're mad too. We've talked about the trauma of being away. We have multiple traumas where our brain and our emotions freeze at that time period. Right. And then while you're in prison, you have other traumas, the traumas of being away. I'm taking a PTSD class because not only being in prison caused stress and PTSD, but coming back has caused PTSD, because we live in a society where when we left, we didn't have this many people. We didn't have this much traffic. We didn't have internet. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have any of this stuff. So you have to cope with a society that expects you to handle all of this stuff. Well, guess what? Some of us have trouble. Right. And I'm number one to say, yeah, I have trouble all the time. But you're aware enough to deal with it.
And something you said that's important too is that friends are definitely a category of people that you would reunify with. And again, remembering that there were changes in your life and changes in their lives during that period of time. So I'm glad that you brought that population up. I thank you for that.
We're in a new society.
Yes. And Kit, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Hey, I look at this here like this here. You asking me about reunification. It's, to me, how could I reunify myself with this world when I left this world as a juvenile, as a straight gangbanger? I went all the way to death row, come all the way home. I got all the way back here to find, beat me up, Spotty. I don't want to be here. This is the world, it's not the world I left. My family's gone, my sister's gone, my brother's gone, my mama gone, my daddy gone. I'm out here by myself and I'm struggling and I'm making it. It's been 3 years. And 3 years are the hardest time of my life. But I can tell you one thing. It's a brand new world and it's sweet out here.
Yeah. And that's something, I think it also goes back to what Mr. Willie was saying is, like you say, what world was it? You didn't even really know yourself. You didn't have all of that. You weren't a unified something. You know what I mean? With all of those different things. So It's definitely tough to come through it, and then to have your handicap to develop certainly makes reintegration certainly a difficult prospect. But you hang in there here. You hang in there and know that you're not out here by yourself, okay?
I ain't quit yet, and I ain't finna stop.
That's all right. That's all right. Mr. Otis. Can you unmute? There you go.
Hi, Noreen.
Hi.
Yeah, it took me a while to unite myself with my sister, my family, my niece, nephews, and all my relatives. It took, well, since I've been out, about a year, because I didn't have any family. I'm no support at all while I was in prison. None of them wrote me. None of them called me. I couldn't do nothing. Only my sister wrote me 1, 2, 3 letters, I think. But my ex-wife wrote me about 3 letters. But after that, it stopped. After doing 10 years, in the 30 years, nothing else. But when I got out, they all wanted to know me. They wanted to get to know me better. And my niece says, as long as you can keep the cork in the bottle and don't open the cork, you'll be all right. But they always think, you're going to go right back to the drinking and smoking and going to bars and doing all kinds of criminal crap. But I'm not going to do any of that. I'm done with that kind of life. I've changed my way of walking and living. I've changed my way of living.
Let me ask you this. Did the fact that nobody tended or nobody was there while you were incarcerated, how did you feel about them now wanting to know you now? Did you have a little resentment about that, or did you understand?
Yeah, I had a little resentment, but I understood it. My life was around drinking and criminal behavior.
Okay.
And they weren't going to trust me until they got to know me.
Okay.
And so, like, my sister's always telling me, she says, you better not go to the bar, and you better not go out there and steal anything else and do any more criminal activities. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to do any more, nothing. I'm walking a narrow and straight line. And
got you.
But she's always saying that, well, I hope you'll come up and visit me and get to know your grandkids and all your relatives and everything. But it's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of time before I can get a place to live out here on my own. And also, it's going to take some time to get a job and transportation. I'm working on everything.
Mm-hmm.
I only got like 9 more months and I can get my driver's license.
Wonderful.
But that's everything. I'm working on a place to get my own apartment. I just got to, let them trust me to be a better person.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Mr. Lopes, talk to me.
Yes, the topic was pretty good, but I don't have any kids. But I was surprised that everybody, well, whoever's still alive, knew that I changed. The people that I wreaked havoc on back in the 70s and 80s knew I was a different person.
Wow.
Yeah, especially my sister-in-law. She forgave me like nothing happened. Like I wasn't the monster that I was. I was a pretty bad person. But she said, "Oh, everybody changes." I said, "Okay." And then when my mom passed away, it brought me and my brother closer together. He never really talked to me while I was locked up until my mom passed away about 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So he started writing me and calling, well, mainly just writing me because we never talked on the phone. They had that weird phone call thing where I had to pay. They made it where you had to pay. The inmate had to pay something. I don't know. I said, it's easier just for me to write you. So we went from there. Yeah. So
But
I
it
was
is
just surprised.
complicated though. But you were really fortunate that those people actually gave you, understood that you changed. That was important.
Yeah, I
That was
was
huge.
surprised that I thought when I came out, it was like everybody was going to keep their distance,
Uh-huh.
like if I had some kind of disease. But no, they came as soon as they found out I was out, because he was up in Washington when I got out. As soon as they came back down south, they came see me and everything, and I was like, okay, all's good. Nothing really happened. It's like I never was locked up. Like I was never that bad person back in the 70s and 80s.
That's
So,
awesome. That's awesome. That was a blessing. That was a
plus,
blessing.
they helped me move. My brother helped me move. He did all the work, and he's older than me. He's in his 70s. Well, he keeps in shape. He works out every day. So yeah,
I'll
he
keep
did
that
all
in
the
wait,
moving
I'll
for me.
keep that in mind when I need some help. Look.
Yeah, I was surprised he was lifting everything up. So here, I'll get everything for you. If you just sit down.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
thanks for sharing your perspective on it for us tonight, Mr. Bradley.
He was just a magnificent man, and he did so much for our community. Most people remember that he was in Fantasy Island as a star.
Yeah. Tonight I'm gonna keep my opinion to myself because a lot of things I wasn't feeling because hey.
Let me tell you this. Let me stop you right there and say this.
Sometimes.
Let me stop you right there and say this. Your opinion is as valid as anybody else's opinion.
Okay.
And whatever you wasn't feeling, you just wasn't feeling it. Ain't nobody gonna be mad that you wasn't feeling it.
I don't care what other people think of my opinions or how I feel. I really don't care. I speak my truth. My truth is my truth. My truth might not be true for other people's truth, but sometimes some people go to prison for something they didn't do. It seems like everybody want to say because you're incarcerated, you're a bad person. You did it, but there are innocent people in prison who've been down 20, 30 something years in prison. But then there's also women who get with men who living a fast life, knowing they living a fast life, knowing anything can happen to this person, but they stay with them. But when that man get caught up, they like, oh, then they want to paint the fingers at people. And for my daughters, I was there for them in prison. I had the birds and the bees talk. Anytime something was wrong with my daughters, I'd be the first one to call. I had my family bring my daughters come. My daughters trusted me. They shared with me. They was open with me. I did everything I can do from in prison to be the father.
Let me ask you a quick question. How old were your daughters when you went to prison?
My daughter was 1 and 3 years old, and I had a son who was 4 years old.
Okay.
But my kids knew they could come talk to me.
Okay.
Their mother's the one screwed my daughters up. My daughters, their mother screwed them up because they had my daughter thinking in a way that a man's supposed to take care of them. I was trying to raise my daughter from in prison, be independent. I didn't want them to depend on a man. I want them to they could do anything, a female could do anything a man can do, as far as their thing. That's how I wanted my daughters to be raised. Then now the mother talking about, I owe her money for raising my daughter. No, you owe me money for screwing my daughters up. The fact that, they was raised as a man supposed to take care of them, and that ain't right to me. Like I said, it seems like every time, just because a black man get put in prison or a brown man get put in prison, it's like it's always his fault. It's always he's the one screwed up the kids. No, we want our kids to do better than we would. Most of them. I'm gonna speak for me. I wanted my daughters, my kids to do better than me. I tried to steer my kids away from gang members and all that. When I get out from incarceration, before I get out, my daughters say, one of them say, give me such a amount of money and give my sister such a amount of money. And when you get out, you could double your money up. I'm like, ain't that about a blip? You go double your money up and go, take your ass to prison. One of them felt that I'm supposed to get out and beat her baby father up because they wasn't getting along. No, you call the police if you got a problem with him or whatever. The dude was a good dude. The dude didn't do nothing wrong that I felt. And just because I took a liking to the dude, now I'm the bad guy. I'm like, no, I ain't getting caught up in your madness and none of that type of stuff right there.
But like I say, the mother, my daughter's mother, the one screwed them up, I feel, you know. Like I say, everybody has their own opinion, but you can't compare everybody the same way. You know, different females, different males. You know, it's like, I'm gonna look at it for what it really is. You know, there's some messed up dudes out here went to prison or whatever. There's some messed up female was out of prison who screwed the kids up. Your daddy wasn't shit. They were gonna be shit. That's why your daddy ain't here. That. But the mama got with the daddy when she knew she was a sideline. You know what I'm saying? But we had a baby by the dudes. I ain't saying me or it's like I don't judge people. I look at it for what it really is. You know, I'm not gonna say every man in prison was a bad dude. You know,
and I don't think anybody here felt that way either. I certainly not.
That's all I heard. Be honest, I didn't hear nothing about there are some good men in prison who tried to be a good father or daddy figure to their child. I ain't never hear nothing about there are some women who misled the kids that they're saying the daddy wasn't nothing or I never heard none of that. That's all
it just didn't come up. It just didn't come up.
But when it don't come up, it's like misleading then. It should come up to let people know, wait a minute. You know, some dudes in there because they got mistaken identity or police did something crooked. That's why he did that 100 years and stuff like that. Because some what's that some group that I can't say the group name right now, had got innocent project, have got people out from doing 30 years because they was innocent. Now the kids are screwed up, but wasn't that dude's fault for him going to prison? You know,
well, and it's a good thing that in this discussion that you brought it up, because that is the truth. That is the truth. Thank you for acknowledging that, because I can tell you, I know too many people that are in prison for stuff they didn't do. People got long periods of time. I know people, men who have tried to be fathers to their children while incarcerated. There's a lot of that. And so it's good that you're bringing those things up. They just weren't the discussions of what we were having here. But I will say this is that
more the discussion we having about the children and stuff.
Say it again.
But isn't this a part of the discussion about the children?
Well, it was only people that were discussing about their children or people who had their experiences.
Yeah.
So, for example, Cheryl's son's father was incarcerated too, right? Diane's husband was incarcerated and she had her children. And they're really only two that were talking about the father of their children in this discussion. The other young lady, she had a substance abuse issue and it wasn't about her children's fathers at all. So we really didn't have.
But I also heard males. I also, not just female, I'm not saying that see, I'm a fair person. I heard males saying things. It's not just female, it's people. I look at people saying certain conversations because I can't say women. That means I'm like male bash or female bash. And I can't do that. I heard males.
No. Mr. Bradley, let me say something. When I speak on my experience. And my experience, my baby mamas, I have 5 of them. I got 7 kids. I was out there living a fast life. I didn't have no commitment with them. It wasn't no relationship. They knew what it was. When I went to jail, they tried to keep my kids away from me. Yeah, you got women that will keep their kids away from the fathers in jail. That's true enough. But what I'm telling you is, you're welcome to speak on your experience. When I speak on my experience, and I speak from my truth because I know what I was into. I was gang banging, dope selling. Matter of fact, my job was I was a hitman. That was my job. That's where I made my living.
Wait, Mr. Bradley, I want you to let him finish and then talk because I want to hear what you're saying. And when you start talking, I can't hear either one of y'all.
And when I speak on my I-isms, I speak on my life. That's where I wasn't the daddy that I was supposed to be. I feel like I failed my kids because I knew these bros wasn't nothing. I knew what kind of women I slept with. I knew they was gonna track as soon as I went to jail. I didn't care. I thought my mother was at least my kids can see my mother, see my father. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew I was headed to prison. I was trying to stack my dough and get the best attorney I could get because I knew what I was into. The thing of it is, if you have something to say in this group, speak it out. Ain't nobody gonna debate what you feel and what you brought a new a new perspective on the group just that quick.
Yes.
And that's what you do. Bring it in. And it's gonna help somebody that didn't think about it that way. I can only speak on my experience.
That's
and I'm
right.
glad you brought it up.
So wait,
Don't
let me
nobody
stop
do
you
no
right there.
mail
Let
back.
me let you land right there, and then I want to give Mr. Bradley what you were saying while he was talking.
Oh, I wanted to know who I was communicating with just now because I wanted, like he said, Mr. Bradley. I can't see on this phone.
Oh, it was James. It was James.
James?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was James. Okay,
James.
all right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when I speak, I try to use I. When I say about female, I say my kids. I don't speak of males being in prison and doing this. I say I can only speak on my situation, my truth and stuff like that. And it's like when a lot of people talk, they use like the male. We knew what we was doing. They say we knew what we was doing with the prison. We knew
Got
we was
you.
doing fast. Like instead, I knew what I was doing.
Got you.
I was with. She knew what I was doing. She knew
Understood.
a fast life that's when you go to prison. But then again, when you say when men go to prison, they knew what they're doing. That's why they went to prison. No, some men's in prison because they were set up and all this type of stuff. Everybody is not guilty. That's all I'm saying. It's like
got you.
When you live a fast life, criminal life, you know the consequence. When you with someone, they know you live in that fast life. They know the consequences behind that right there. They
You would hope so.
To have them kids by you. So it's not the man in prison fault. It's both of the parents' fault for choosing that to be with, to have them kids, knowing the lifestyle they was into, things can happen. You can be taken away from your kids. So therefore, that woman or that person should have been with that man or woman, should have been with that person when they took a fall to help raise them kids and bring them kids to see their father or their mother in prison so they could build a relationship with them kids. So them kids wouldn't get strayed, end up incarcerated like that parent was incarcerated. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and that's true. And let me say this, because I want to say this about that. The scenario you laid out is interesting to me in this regard is that when I look at my friend Diane's situation, all of what you said she did, and to allow her kids to have a relationship with their father, and they still wound up getting incarcerated.
Sure did.
So in other words, you can do all of what you just said, and it still don't work out the same way. But I'm really glad, and so I just want to say this to you: please never feel that you need to not say or keep your opinion to yourself. It actually, as it happened in this instance, it added another layer or perspective to the conversation, and it's necessary. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate it greatly. And I just want to say thank you for your contribution to the discussion. Okay. Okay. And I'm gonna let Mr. Rufus. Let's see if you can unmute and give us your perspective on the conversation tonight.
I raised my hand when you said about kids, but because of the way my background was.
Oh, I couldn't see it. Okay.
You couldn't see it.
Okay.
But, my daughter, when I left, my daughter was 4 months old and my son was still in the stomach. So I was fortunate that my kids wanted to know me. You know what I mean? So when they got to it, I didn't find my daughter till she was 17. So when I did this, reconnect with her, my whole thing was to put my best foot forward as a person, as a man. And I wanted to, my thing was always, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So I always wanted to show her who I truly am. You know what I mean?
Uh-oh, for some reason your mic went out again.
It went out.
Now we can hear you. Now I can hear you.
And I just wanted her to know the person that I am today.
Mm-hmm.
That I am genuinely. So when, so I was fortunate in that way when I, since I've been out and even since I've been in touch with her when she was 17, it's been beautiful. My daughter 35 now. So, and it's like, our relationship it's brand new. So and it's, it's just a beautiful relationship, and my son as well. So I just feel fortunate. I didn't have the struggles, because my thing was just to be honest, and I was prepared for whatever response she gave to me. I was prepared for it because she's entitled to feel how she feels, and just fortunately her thing was that I don't hold nothing against you. You was young, you was in the street, you was this, you was that. She knew about it just as well as I did, and I just tell her, you amazing, because she and she lays it out for me, you know what I mean? And
that's awesome. And you know what's so cool about that is it's one of the things that we talked about a couple weeks ago, came up about. This is all, you guys also have an opportunity to reinvent yourselves or have new experiences and create new memories and those things. And you can start those things now. So it's just awesome that in your experience and in your circumstances, your children gave you a clean slate.
Gave me a clean slate.
And all I can say, I'm gonna tell you this: they must have had good mamas.
That's what I say. I tell her all the time. I tell her, your mother did a beautiful job with you. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't have been as great as it is now if had I been out there, because I wasn't on that level. So I knew,
And see, and it could be too, for example, that you got put away before the damage could be done. They were babies.
Right.
So in other words, you had a clean slate versus a slate that had some messed up writing on it that you had to undo first before you had to write on it. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You was hooked up. That was a hookup.
Absolutely.
Who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Mr. Gilbert.
Hi.
Hi. So your perspective on the conversation.
Well, real quick, I don't want to take up too much time, but I could probably give a little perspective different, because like I was like on the other end of that. Like I wasn't raised by my parents, and I went to live with my grandparents at an early age because of their addiction and their incarcerations. So that unification, I kind of know from the other end. And I could say at their worst, I never saw them as anything but a loving parent, which is kind of hard because now other people did. But it wasn't until that they made a decision to turn their lives around where I resented them, because they came to me and told me, you know what, from this moment on, we're not the same people we used to be. And I'm kind of ashamed when I look back and surprised how I felt when they said that, because my life ended up being like a revolving door, following their footsteps. So when they discovered and found their change, that's when I resented them. How dare you tell me that you're not the person I knew? How dare you tell me that you're no longer going to be that person? That's the only person I knew. So when I did try to have that unification, or when they tried to have that unification with me, they were strangers to me, and they were trying to live their life for the better and to give me a better life.
Wait, wow, that's so deep to me, because what that meant is, what they didn't know is they were taking away the parents that you had in love. They were trying to do better. They were trying to be better people and be healthy and whole, and didn't realize that all you knew were the other people, and they were the people you loved. Oh my gosh, they had no idea.
Right. And that's what I said, I'm kind of ashamed when I look back, but now I wasn't mature enough to understand it. And now I am, and my mother never looked back. And it was unfortunate that shortly after that I caught my sentence, and we never had that time to grow in a healthy relationship other than prison, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
But thank God she never looked back. And 24, 25 years later, she's been by my side, and never never went back to that lifestyles. But as I parole, as I'm getting out, we're starting to, we're having that time now to have that unification, and we don't know each other. We still don't know each other, but I'm different and she's the same as, not the same as I knew her, but
yeah, that one in the middle. Wait, she's still the middle person, right? The one in the middle.
Well, the person I know today, I've known longer now, because to compare to the person I knew then, so she's been more positive, cleaner lifestyle for a lot longer now than I knew her as a child. Wow. So, but it's daily. It's a day by day thing. It's not easy, but being that where we are, we're in the same like mind, and now it's like we connect because I have the same goals, or she's made her goals, she's made her life, but it's good today.
That's awesome. But I bet also is you two have the same goal as it relates to your relationship, which is to be in relationship, in healthy relationship with each other as healthy people. So this is, again, you guys get to write a whole new thing.
Well, you know what she told me, and it's like, she says, well, I need to get a job, Mom. I want to work. She goes, no, you know what? You don't have to work. You don't got to, I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. But, that's what she wants to do. She wants to make up for that. But,
of
that
course,
can't
you're a
happen.
man, and that's not going to fly with you, right? But just understand. Oh, that's just awesome. That is. Oh, that made my whole night. That's kind of cool. But that was a revelation, though, to think about. And it's one thing. So one of our properties, we house former emancipated foster youth, and the one thing that I know is that I don't care what their parents do. More often than not, they're not supposed to have anybody live with them. The first person they want to bring in is a parent, usually their mother. They want to bring her into that space that they are not supposed to have her. And it doesn't matter whether she's still on drugs, whatever's going on, they still want that particular mother. And most people don't realize that it's a natural, innate thing to love the source from which you come. So that's a powerful message and a powerful lesson. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall. There you go.
Well, the unification thing, for me, I don't have any kids, but for me, I'm going through that with family and friends. And it's just understanding that I'm no longer the person I was when I left the streets, and they're no longer the person they were when I left the streets. And so it's a process. But, thank goodness I went to a lot of groups when I was in prison, because a lot of those groups do help. You can rely on a lot of the coping skills, the principles and stuff like that. You have to understand, patient, tolerant, and I try to lead with love. I believe in, I am a Christian, so that's where I get my guidance from. So I just lead with love. So I try to go into the situation with love.
That's wonderful.
And just like this group right here is very helpful. I take some out of this group every week to deal with situations I'm in out there.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, Mr. Darius. There you go.
For me, my birthday was just Sunday, right?
Happy belated birthday!
So, the good thing about all this, I think for me, my little sister took me going to jail the hardest out of everybody. And I come from a tight family where, she didn't speak about it. She wouldn't write. She wouldn't do a lot of things. But when I got out Monday, which was her birthday, she immediately dropped everything and came over there to see me. And that connection that we have, even though everybody was like under 10 years old when I left, now everybody has kids. And so when they was like, well, we're going to do something for your birthday, I said, well, you know what? Let's do something like, we're going to invite people, but I want to do it to where it's not about me. It's about us establishing our connection with each other again. and that's what we did. We clown, we played dominoes, spades, all that. We talked junk to each other. We danced, karaoke, all that. And it was a ball. It was like we never really missed a beat, But I still, there's still a lot of work to be done, you know what I'm saying? But, my thing is that now that I'm here, and back, is establishing, I can't establish those relationships we had before. It's forging these new relationships.
Yes.
And it's like with their kids, forging relationships with them. Because like most of my cousin kids, they don't call me their big cousin, they call me uncle.
Right.
I treat all of my little cousins like brothers and sisters.
Right.
Because I'm the oldest boy, and so that's how, when I was listening to all this conversation, I was like, wow, that's almost exactly like what I did this weekend. It kind of hit the note for me.
Well, that's wonderful. And again, happy belated birthday. And let me ask you this, what was the age difference between you and your sister?
Let me see. So she is the middle girl, which is she number 4. So she's about at least 6, maybe 7 years younger than me.
Okay.
Give or take.
Okay. And she took it the hardest. You guys were close, or was it just that you were big brother and everything to her and it was removed?
Both. We was that close and I was big brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Teaching her how to swim, ride a bike, all that stuff like that.
Yeah. And it was just gone. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that that you guys got a chance to do that, and I'm hopeful that you have many, many, many happy birthdays with your family and many more gatherings where you all can be together. And like you said, I'm glad you're looking at it as an opportunity to build those relationships now, create those new relationships as well, because the bloodline is there. And now it's about how do we interact one with another on a healthy level and allow them to be there for you. I want you to know you don't have to do all of this yourself.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah, because a lot of guys come home, a lot of people come home, and what they want to do, they want to do everything themselves. Yeah. I want to do it myself. I don't want nobody to tell. I don't need no help. I want to let people help you. When you need help, go ahead and have it. Okay. And welcome home. And I'm just hopeful that that things continue to go well. And that's it. I think I got everybody right, Miss Cheryl. Any last comments from you?
We hope to see you back, Mr. Miller. And Gilbert, thank you for your story. And tell your mom I said thank you. I go to speak sometimes, and I had a lady that I did time with that has since gone on. But when I came home, I said to her, I don't think my family's happy I'm here. And she said, Cheryl, when we get to prison, it's like we die. She said, and when we come home, we're alive again to them, but we have to fit in where we fit in. And sometimes we don't fit in at all. So let's remember that and take yourself with you wherever you go, the self that you are now, the person that you are now, because you're a different person, and just live your life.
Thank you, Ms. Dye.
Okay, I want to clarify something. It is not my life with my husband didn't start off as him being a criminal. He had a job, and then things turned in a different light. But our life wasn't always like that. We both had jobs, we both worked, we both took care of the kids. But it's just when his life took that turn, by me being his wife, and I was already on that ride with him, I stayed there and rode it all the way out with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got it. And thank you for your input. And I think that's it. James, did I give you checkout time, baby? Did I give you checkout, James? Unmute.
I just want to say to all my brothers and sisters, Darius, enjoy yourself, get to know yourself. It was hard for me when I came home, but you have a lot of family leaning on them because they will lead you in the right direction. To all my other brothers, just came home or not, get to know who you are, date yourself, find out what you like outside of prison. because I still don't know what I like. I eat everything. But just get to know yourself. Take your shoes off, put your feet in the grass. Something we couldn't do in prison, you know, because you're free now. Enjoy life.
Hallelujah. And thank you. And I appreciate all of you all being here. It's always a good time conversation. I appreciate all of you. And we will see you next week on Free to Heal. Have a good one, you guys.